Hi everyone, I'm Stephen and welcome to Audionautica. Recently I moved house, and there's nothing more exciting when you move house, I think, than finding some hi-fi gear that someone's left behind in a cupboard. And that's exactly what I found that we see in these two bits of Yamaha gear. So we've got a Yamaha RX460 receiver, and we've got a CDC, what's that, a 635? Yeah, I think so, a Yamaha CDC 635 exchanger. So I literally have done nothing to these. You can see that they look absolutely disgusting. They're covered in mildew, but I don't think they're too bad inside. I had a look at the receiver. It's from 1992-93. This one was made in Malaysia, and it does 55 watts per channel in stereo. And yeah, this is the kind of thing that, back in the early 90s, you would have made a nice system out of these kinds of things. I was at university at the time, and these are the kinds of things I would have gone and looked at in hi-fi shops and never been able to afford them. So I went home and used my second-hand thing that came from cash converters instead. So anyway, it's probably not really considered high-end by today's standards. But if I can get the changer going, I will use it, because I don't actually have one on one of my systems at the moment. And if I can get the receiver going, the amp going, then I think that could be a handy thing to have around, even if it's just for testing purposes. You can never have too many amplifiers, right? So in this video, I'm going to get stuck into the receiver, and I'll come back to the changer on a different video. Okay, so I've done a very quick clean on the outside, and that's come up quite nicely. For something of this age, it looks pretty good. So let's get the lid off and have a look inside. Okay, so here we are with the lid off. Yeah, it's a little bit dusty, which is to be expected. I'm doing all this inspection before I turn it on, because I want to make sure that there aren't any components that have obviously lunched themselves before I turn it on. So that's kind of the plan. So I think I need to try to get this cleaned up a little bit more, and we go from there. Okay, so the board didn't quite clean up as well as I would have liked. I just did a very sort of rudimentary clean, but the dust is just a little bit settled on the board. So it's much better than it was. But for this kind of thing, it's about as good as it's going to get for now. It's just not worth putting a huge amount of effort into this thing. So anyway, I've got the dim bulb tester hooked up, so let's see what happens. Okay, I'm not too surprised by that, and the reason why I'm not too surprised is because oh, okay, all right, well, that's clever. Yeah, this is not a, it's on. Yeah, it is on. Let's just bring you in so you can see. Yeah, so I thought there was something wrong with the power switch because this doesn't latch. Well, it's not supposed to latch. There's a relay there, and that just controls the relay. So that's pretty cool. This is actually looking like a really nice little amp for 1993 vintage. It's got a phono stage as well, which I didn't mention, which is quite nice because 1993, that was well and truly the era of the CD. I don't think LPs had started coming back in. I was buying second-hand LPs because that's all I could afford. All right, let's get the dim bulb tester out of there. Okay, so I have downloaded the service manual for this thing, and it does give a couple of DC test points to check. So let's check those. Q40 emitter should have plus 10 volts on it. See if we can find that. Okay, that is Q40 emitter, and that looks like plus 10 volts to me, so that is correct. Next it says that Q42 emitter should have minus 9 volts on it. Okay, it says minus 8.7, so that's close enough. It does give a tolerance in the service manual. It says it's plus or minus 1 volt, which is a fair bit. So that's certainly fine. D18 cathode, it says should be plus 12 volts. D18 cathode, that is plus 12 volts. Okay. So all the DC voltages are as they should be. Now it also gives some figures for the idle current or the bias current, which I will check later on. I'm not going to do that right now. I think it's time to see if this thing will make some noise. Alright, well that's just a quick little test with my dinky test speakers. But so far so good. Yeah, this is a neat little amp actually. It's got a source direct, which basically bypasses all of the tone controls. It's got a loudness control. It's got that little relay power up that I mentioned before, because it did support a remote control. The remote appears to be long lost, but there's also a motor built into the volume control, which is pretty cool as well. So yeah, shame that the remote's gone missing. But a neat little receiver amplifier. Also, you might be able to see too, unless I'm mistaken, these look like sill pads. These are the power transistors here. And that looks like a sheet of material behind them. And I can't see any of the normal white thermal compound that you'd expect to see there. So if that is what they are, that's pretty darned impressive, I think. Also, I noticed looking in the service manual, this is a 4-bit microcontroller, which is pretty cool too. Controls all the switching and the front panel interface and the display and so on. The downside of that is that if the micro dies, then, well, the amp is a doorstop. So that's one of the reasons why I don't like amplifiers that are a little bit too smart for their own good. But it all seems to be working so far. I haven't tested the phono in and I haven't tested the tuner. I don't think I'm even going to bother testing the tuner. But we'll need to check the idle current. Okay, so I'm back guys. I tested this on a turntable and that seems to work fine. Tested the auxiliary in. This has been running for about an hour now, playing music through it, so I've now got the music disconnected, got the speakers disconnected, so I'm just going to double check the bias. I had a quick look at it before. According to the service manual, it should be 22 millivolts. I've got both channels hooked up to my trusty DM502A multimeters. Now I did adjust these the other day. They were reading really quite low, about 10 millivolts, so I'm not quite sure why they would have been that low, but it's certainly not what the service manual says. So the service manual says it should be 22 millivolts plus or minus 8. Plus or minus 8 is a fair bit of range, but anyway, I bumped them up and I'm just going to give them a fine little tweak now, just to what the service manual says that they should be. So we'll just go this way a bit. Okay, that's that one. Yeah, this one. There we go. That's pretty darn close. So quite happy with that. This heatsink is warm just, but it's certainly not toasty or anything, so that seems fine. Okay, so I think that's the BIOS set. So just a couple of other things that I want to do on this before I think we can button it up. Okay guys, so as you can see I have got this thing buttoned up now. So a couple of things outstanding. There was some nasty scratching just on this little lens. So I fixed that up with some Polywatch that I use on my other channel, Watch Out, which is all about watchmaking. And this is, yeah, intended for polishing scratches out of plastic. So that it's not perfect, but it's much better than it was. So that's good. I've also hooked it up to the Keithley, which has got a THD test mode in it. So if I put some output on, we can see that that is fine. 0.015 more or less is what it reads. I've already checked the other channel. The other channel was fine. So THD test fine. Now I know some people will say that I haven't done anything with this, and that is true. I haven't actually done anything to this amplifier apart from take the scratches out of it. But I've cleaned it up. I've verified that it is working correctly. I've done a THD test on it. The results are as expected. So it's actually working as it should work. So yes, this is 31 years old. And some people will say that I should have ripped all of the electrolytic capacitors out and replaced them with brand new ones. Well, I don't agree. Now, it is possible that this might fail. If it fails, I'll fix it. But for the sake of what this amplifier is, it is just not worth my time, me going through and either testing the capacitors and replacing the ones that have failed, or replacing the whole lot of them. Quite clearly, a heap of them have not failed because it is working perfectly at the moment. If they fail, I need to fix it, I'll fix it. But for the sake of an amp that's worth, I don't know, a couple of $100 at the most, it just isn't worth my time, because in my time it would cost me a heck of a lot more than that to go through and recap this thing. So if it was a different amplifier, a higher end amplifier, I probably might spend the time on it. But for this one, I'm not going to. So the point is that you make an informed, intelligent, reasoned decision as to what is the appropriate course of action to take with anything that ends up on the bench. And in this particular case, this is the decision I've made and the reason why I've decided to do that. So thank you so much for joining me in this little short video on this amplifier that I found in the cupboard. I've got the CD player, the CD changer to get to yet. That'll be next. Please subscribe to my channel. It means so much to me. And give me a like if you enjoyed this video, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Bye for now.